Hey everybody, John, you're over here, Maryland K-12. I'm going to take a little deeper look into the situation going on at Kenwood High over on the east side in Baltimore County. Basically what happened is there was an alert by an AI weapons detection system, which is it's called OmniAlert. The school system gets the alert, they notify the police go in, they end up with this kid in handcuffs. It turns out, according to everything I read, the kid had a bag of Doritos. Now there's a lot of outrage going on about this because the kid ended up, I think ended up on the ground with handcuffs, and there were a few other kids. It was a real problem. So there's a lot of people really upset about this, and legitimately so. So I'm no expert on OmniAlert, but I have worked with it a little bit. I know how it basically works. Basically what happens is, and if you follow this, because according to the superintendent, this was a failure. This was a human failure. This was not an AI failure. So you go, okay, so what's the failure here? I think I know. The weapons detection system scanning all the crowds and everything, and it zeroes in on something that it thinks is a weapon for whatever reason. It then notifies the school system. The school then gets the notification. They then notify the police because the system itself, it belongs to the school. The school buys them, the school implements them, the school runs them. And when the system produces an alert, they then notify the police and say, hey, we've got an alert. And they tell them when, where, and all that, or where to go. So in this situation, the OmniAlert produced an alert for this kid, said it was carrying a weapon or whatever. They sent the weapon, they sent it to the school system. The school system then notified the police. Well, apparently, according to what the superintendent said, the principal did not, apparently the school system canceled the alert, and the principal was not aware that the alert had been canceled and forwarded the alert on to the SRO. The SRO then gets on his mic and says, hey, we got a weapon here at Kenwood High, et cetera, et cetera. They start sending police, and they take action. No one ever, came to them and said, stand down or, call off the dogs, if you will. So anyway, so there seems to be a breakdown in the communication or in the chain of communication between OmniAlert, school system, principal, SRO. How they have that worked out, I'm not exactly sure, but that seems to be the breakdown. I don't know. Everyone's all up in a set. One guy was on there saying, we can't, some local politician, you got to love them. We can't have kids being handcuffed for carrying potato chips or for, of course not. Everybody knows that, and no one expects that. But then how are we going to fix this? What happens if it was a gun? Everyone will be jumping for joy saying, yay, look at what this weapons detection system did. It's a tough situation. I think the real problem lends itself, and few of the media reports have said this, but some have not. I think the real issue is the way it was handled after the situation. There did not seem to be any consolation to the child, I'm saying child, he's 16, I think he was, 16, 15, 16, 17, something like that. That's a terrible thing for any kid. All of a sudden, out of the blue comes cops, put your hands up, get on the ground, At no point did the school system reach out to that kid and say, oh my God, we're so sorry. Let's come on in. Let's talk about this. Let me show you exactly why we did what we did, et cetera, et cetera. And try to, kind of make it up for him. They didn't do that. They just kind of went, well, sorry, things said you had a gun. Turns out you didn't. Glad you didn't. Have a nice day. That's, I think, one of the real problems. What I think needs to happen and should happen, and it very well may, I think they need a press conference. Apparently, the superintendent did hold a press conference, but it's kind of evasive, well, it was a human error, et cetera, et cetera. They need to have a press conference. Someone from OmniAlert, they need someone from BCPS, and they need someone from the police department to say, here's what the alert said. Show them some screenshots. Here's the alert. Here's the channel of notifications, and here's how they got their notification. Here's what the police did. Here's their protocol, what they did. And here's where it went wrong, and here's how we can possibly fix it in the future. That's probably the best way that they could approach this. But again, they're not, and they still may, but it's just like, here we go again. Sometimes these school systems, they just can't get out of their own way when all they have to do is just, own up to it. Say, boy, this was a really tough situation. We've reached out to this kid. We brought him in. We did the, and for whatever reason, they just want to say, sorry, and move on. So anyway, enough about that. I hope that helps, and I'll keep my eye on it, and everything else comes out, I'll let you know. But I hope this little bit of insight helps. Thanks. Have a great day.